is happening? Let me get my mic situated here. We got Troy in the chat, got John Brooks in the chat, Laura Poe, Dave Blasman, all the homies. Great to see everybody. Welcome to all the freaks, the disruptors. Love all of you. Got a good night tonight. Usually we go over some music news, and then we'll get into information on the not-for-profit and Q&A. Q&A is just any time, though. Just toss the questions in, and we'll get them answered. And then at 10 o'clock, we're going to roll into the new episode with Will Dunlop, a.k.a. DJ Wolverine from 89.1 Max FM, Alternative North. He should be coming in soon, too, I think, into the chat. It's great to see everybody. Thanks for tuning in. How's everybody doing tonight? Bradshaw is supposed to be coming by to everyone who is watching with catering. So just stand by. Just text him if he doesn't come by in like 5 minutes. He promised. All right. So let's get into the music news here. Let's pop this up. So as always, we'll start with all the Live Nation Ticketmaster bullshit because that's what everybody's talking about. So this is an update on the Live Nation Ticketmaster hearing that took place a few weeks ago now. This is a letter to the Assistant Attorney General that kind of summed up the whole thing. Bradshaw's probably picking lint out of his belly button. Yeah, probably. Shout out Bradshaw, though, and our new cover band, Fat Waylon. Stay tuned for our first single, Gas Station Chili Dogs, coming out soon on all streaming platforms. So, dear Assistant Attorney General Cantor, as you know, we have been long concerned about the state of competition in North America's ticketing industry, especially with the power and reach of Live Nation and its wholly owned subsidiary, Ticketmaster. We strongly believe that music and live events connect communities and bring people together. For too long, Live Nation and Ticketmaster have wielded monopoly power, anti-competitivity, harming fans and artists alike. We recently held a bipartisan hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee, which the president of Live Nation testified under oath, as did other industry participants, including an artist, a secondary marketing ticketing company, a promoter, and industry experts. We write to share some of the evidence developed at the hearing and to encourage the division to follow up on some remaining questions in the industry. As an initial matter, other than Live Nation's executive, every witness at our hearing testified that Live Nation is harming America's music industry. For example, the founder and CEO of SeatGeek testified that Ticketmaster now uses even longer exclusive agreements with venues, in some instances as long as 10 years. Clyde Lawrence, lead singer in the band Lawrence, testified that on a $30 ticket, Live Nation adds $12 in fees, and of that $42 price, the customer pays only $12 goes to the band before accounting for its costs on the show. A competing promoter, Jam Productions, testified that Live Nation attempts to lock up talent so competitors cannot produce concert tours. He also noted that 87% of Billboard's top 40 tours in 2022 were ticketed by Ticketmaster in the U.S., and that Ticketmaster has exclusive ticketing contracts for more than 85% of the nation's NHL, NFL, and NBA teams. While Live Nation contested the accuracy of this data, it failed to provide any alternative data. A public policy expert at the James Madison Institute testified that Ticketmaster's market dominance allows it to harm consumers through charging service fees and demanding exclusivities. In particular, he noted that the service fees can be greater than 30% and are tracked on the very end of the process, on the very last screen before purchasing, raising questions about deceptive ticket pricing strategies. A former Department of Justice lawyer testified that the conduct remedies in the 2010 consent decree from the Live Nation Ticketmaster merger investigation have failed, and that such failures constitute hard evidence of the firm's monopoly power. She also testified that the company still has the power to silence market participants who fear its retaliation. We asked how many concerts per year were both promoted by Live Nation and ticketed by Ticketmaster, and the company said, without having asked for an extension of time, that it was unable to determine the answer in the time available. We asked Live Nation to tell us how many of the top 100 arenas Live Nation provides ticketing services, and the company provided no response. We asked how many venue contracts Ticketmaster lost to competitor Pacillion? I don't know that competitor in recent years, and the company provided no response. We asked whether Live Nation has entered into any agreements with venues where the contract term for ticketing service is longer than 5 years, and the company provided no response. Brooks, the monopoly is solid. We also asked Live Nation if we could commit to having third-party audits to confirm that it is neither threatening to retaliate or actually retaliating against venues that select other ticketing service providers after the consent decree expires. Live Nation refused to do so. Instead, it said, Live Nation does not need to subject to a consent decree or any similar legal obligation to refrain from retaliating against a venue for using another company's ticketing services and from threatening to retaliate for choosing such another ticketing company. Live Nation's responses amount to, trust us. We believe that it is wholly insufficient. We thank you for your prompt attention to these matters and encourage the Antitrust Division to take action if it finds Ticketmaster has walled itself off from competition pressure at the expense of the industry and fans. Story time with Jake. Laura, I'm so glad you're here, bud. So let's talk about this a little bit. I've gone over the hearing. You can go back to I think one of my previous live streams. It says Ticketmaster hearing or whatever. I went through this entire hearing. It's super long. I think it's 3 or 4 hour live stream. But all of this information is in there, and I talk about every single issue that popped up. A couple of things that were down at the bottom here. We asked whether Live Nation has entered into any agreements with venues where the contract term for ticketing service is longer than 5 years. So in the hearing, the other ticketing services have said that some of Live Nation's contracts are up to 10 years. And it was pretty agreed upon by everyone else in the hearing except the CEO of Live Nation. We asked Live Nation to tell us how many of the top 100 arenas Live Nation provides ticketing services for. There was a lot of argument in between that, but if you go back and watch the whole thing, you'll see it's a very high number. It's much more than their total market share. I think ballpark. This is rough. I'm gonna lowball it. I think it's a bit higher, but I'm gonna say 70%. I think it's probably around 80%, and that's of all NHL, NBA. And I don't know, other sports arenas and stadiums. So yeah, that's the update on the Live Nation Ticketmaster hearing. This letter, all that was just sent to the Assistant Attorney General. And I'll keep everybody updated on how this goes. This is really important stuff. This affects the industry huge. If they were to succeed in breaking up that Live Nation Ticketmaster merger that happened in 2010, it would be very big for the music industry. It would allow a lot more competition, and it would also kind of break the ice for some other competition to become bigger and have a bit more of the market share. Aiden Fountain, hey, how's it going? Fairness. A lot of fairness all around. That's what we want. That's what this whole damn thing's about. And we'll get into fairness and equitable ways of doing business in a little bit when we talk about the not-for-profit later. I've done a lot of work on that this week. So this was an interesting story. This gentleman here is an East Coast man. He runs some house concerts out of this area you see here. Maybe like 20 people or so. But he got some complaints from the neighbors, and the municipality has shut him down. I have some friends who've done house concerts here. It's a pretty popular spot for smaller artists and artists who just don't like playing at clubs. There's so many reasons why house concerts are just so awesome. You get people who are there to see the show. You know people who are there just to play pool or talk to their friends. They're there to see the show. So a lot of artists prefer playing these house shows because there's not really any venues that offer small artists a stage that's dedicated to them, and there's not like people playing pool or people shouting. Like they're there for the show, and that's why these house concerts are really awesome. Yeah, Brooks, for sure, man. I really love house concerts. My dad took me to my first house concert maybe like 15 years ago or so, and I've I've booked a bunch of house concerts, even through the pandemic when you could only have like a few people gathered. We had a show in our driveway, and there was like 10 people there, and the artist, and we adhered to all the rules, and it was great. It's fun way to do shows. But this municipality has shut it down with some complaints from the neighbors. The article goes into a whole bunch of things about being a registered business and all that stuff. And there's some points there, but the important thing here is that this whole thing pokes at there aren't places for artists to play, so they're taking whatever means necessary to keep on producing art and putting on shows. If the private sector won't put venues in that have a stage that can provide a safe place to do a show and a dedicated place to do a show, then people are going to find other ways to do it. David Leslie, I have a house concert every time I take a shower. I bet you do. It's great to see you, man. Thanks for popping in. Troy from Sketch Media is saying zoning is kind of important. Some areas where I live can't have day homes, for instance, because of drop offs and pickups. Yeah, I completely get it. I'm not here to say, screw the neighbors. We're gonna have shows. What I'm getting at is there's some real big holes in the industry, and it would be cool if there were some actual venues that these artists could go to that would have a dedicated stage for people that came to the concert that aren't there for other reasons, and it would stop all these problems with zoning and things. But you're absolutely right. Zoning is, people pay a lot of money for their homes. They work their whole lives to pay their homes off. So if somebody's having concerts next door a couple times a week, and there's parking issues on the street, and there's noise complaints, then it's a problem, and there has to be there has to be a solution, and there is a solution. I'll get to it more in the not-for-profit update when I talk about kind of what we're doing and what we're trying to fund and build. I see it from both sides too, Troy. It is very dependent on circumstances, and No, there's solutions though. There's definitely solutions. So that was that. Jan Stevens. He's a great dude. I've never met him personally, but I know artists who have done shows at his house, including one of my guests, Eamon McGrath, who's I think they're in this article, do and made some comments, and it's I hope he can find a place to do shows, and I hope he can keep doing it and keep bringing people out to the East Coast. I know, especially on the East Coast of Canada, a lot of artists just don't go there just because there's so much road in between the spaces, and it's hard to tour out there. So it's really great what he's doing, and I hope he finds a way to keep doing what he's doing in a way that's not going to piss everybody off. Aiden Fountains. I live across from a huge park where they hold the Folk Fest every year, but I want to hear the music, so no complaining here. Yeah, I'm the same. If like there's, especially if it's just a couple times a year, I probably wouldn't want a festival across the road from my house every week, but um, I wouldn't complain if I would like. I'm not the kind of person to complain about what the neighbors are up to, but that's just me. Other people have a right to, but I'm in the same mind as you, where I'm not going to be complaining. Lay in the pool and hear music. Nice. So next up, Jully Black. There was it's kind of funny that this was in the news this week. I spoke about this last week when after the super. I can't say that word. The football championship of a North American sports league. They sang the national anthem, and I kind of said it was a little bit of a brave move for the artist to kind of do it in a bluesy, moody way. And I had mentioned that sports fans are pretty traditional, and they don't take kindly to people changing the national anthem. So then this week was the NBA All Star Game. I hope I can say that. I hope I don't get banned for this, or this video gets taken down like it did last week for talking about Super Bowl. But Jully Black, she's saying "Oh Canada," and instead of the words "our home" and native land, she's saying "our home on native land," which is absolutely true. We are definitely on native land. Um, before this was Canada, it was Turtle Island, and people got upset about it. And if you go through the message boards, it's a dumpster fire, as it always is whenever something like this takes place. But I've been seeing this for years, and it's a little disheartening. I'll just throw over to here. So this happened back in 2016. So I was lucky enough to work with Nelly Furtado back in 2016. My buddy Pete Cattlebach hit me up, and he had some shows with Nelly Furtado around the NBA All Star Game. So she was singing the national anthem there, obviously, as you see. But we also did some private parties and some rehearsals. So I remember going into the rehearsal studio and hearing her play, and they were rehearsing the national anthem, and it was awesome. I believe they put it in a minor key, and then Tony Duncan, who's in the picture here, is a flute player and a dancer, and he accompanied her in the national anthem, as well as in the private parties we were doing. She was doing kind of like more subdued acoustic versions of her songs, and Tony accompanied her on those too. It was amazing. It was really great. I loved it. But the sports fans did not. So when you kind of put bring in some politics to the national anthem. It it really upsets some people and causes quite a controversy. So, this is what is 2023 now. This was like over 6 years ago. And, with Jully Black, we're seeing the exact same thing. Now, Nelly Furtado made some statements on this about like I think it was like veiled xenophobia was the words. And if I have to say she's right, there's a lot of things that we have to address as Canadians. And, when we're saying our home on native land, we have to realize that those are facts, and it's something we have to deal with. So that's all on that. Just a big thing that happened in music. Laura, Turtle Island Hearts, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I know Pete. I knew Pete. Yeah, and Pete, and who brought me in to do the work with Nelly Furtado. He also knows Sean Richards, who was our boss last year on Immersive Van Gogh. So that small little production world we live in. I love Pete too. Pete Kettleback is an amazing sound engineer, and just a really good hang, man. I have a lot of fun working with him. So this leave it on like a bit of an upbeat here with the news, as I like to do. With news, it can be all doom and gloom, but I really want to showcase this really amazing organization here. Pete Cattleback, he's like James Bond, but sexier. I'm gonna clip this and send it to him, Laura. That's hilarious. So 10 at 10 is a multi-dimensional platform that amplifies the arts, music, and Black culture in Canada since 2011. It has grown from humble roots to international recognition, evolving into a substantial hub for education, urban arts, special events, creative services, promotions, and community. In just under 10 years, we've created over 80 consecutive monthly 10 at 10 showcases, 400 plus special events, featured over 900 artists, and fundraised over $30,000 for charity, and have exposed thousands of Canadians to the hip hop and R&B talents residing in Alberta. So this is just a really cool organization. I saw this. I saw an article on CBC was covering it, and I just wanted to showcase this and show that there are a lot of great people out there that are doing similar work to what I'm trying to do here, and it's just inspirational, and it needs to be done, and it's super cool that they've been so successful doing it. I can go down here a little bit, and there was a. Do I have to go to the About section? What is the gentleman's name who started this? It was in the news article, but I didn't want to show the news article. Berta. Yeah. You're in Berta right now, Troy. You, I'm heading out to Alberta in a couple weeks for the Junos. I'll be in Edmonton. Yeah, Troy. This is for black artists, people of color. They've been doing this since 2011. This I think this is the. I think its name starts with a J. I can't remember. I'm trying to go to the About section here. There's no About section. If I go here, maybe. What's his name? Anyways, super cool organization. Calgary had a great club, Republic. I've never been to that one. I did the Junos there years ago, and I went to a bunch of the little clubs around because Juno, I always like to try and scope out what I can around Juno week. So after the not-for-profit updates, we're going to get into this here at 10 o'clock. I'll put the link in the chat when we get there, and we'll go over here, and it'll be episode 5 with Will Dunlop, a.k.a. DJ Wolverine, from 89.1 Max FM, Alternative North. Will's a radio DJ, a club DJ. He's also writing and directing a documentary on Canadian radio legend Martin Streak. And he's also big into film. He's writing a drama as well in tandem with this Martin Streak documentary. And he was just super fun to chat with. He's a local Aurelia boy like myself. Can I say the station identification in a wild radio voice? I don't have a good radio voice, but I'll try it out. 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Will Dunlop, DJ Wolverine from 89.1 Max FM. I don't know, something like that maybe? Sounds weird. I don't know, man. I got him to on the podcast though because he has that like sexy boomy radio voice. I got it at the end of the podcast. I got him to like do me a bunch of like little audio clips, like you're watching the Hostile Takeover podcast. All us Aurelia peeps end up moving back home eventually. I mean, yeah, I never wanted to move to Toronto. It just like my career just took me there. That's where all the shows are. That's where all the people are. It's where all the networking happens. But you know, I did my time there, and it served me well, and I got out when I could. I wouldn't say it's the worst. I really love Toronto, but I don't want to live there. But I love going there. The food's amazing, the culture is amazing, the shows are amazing, but it's expensive and busy, and you know, I don't want to pay all that money, and I don't want to be busy. I want to just chill out, have a chilled life. I want to be able to get anywhere that I need to go in 5 minutes, like a grocery store or work. No, it's the worst. All right, whatever. Toronto's the worst. Whatever. That voice would work well for the traffic report. Yeah, I guess so, eh? Like who's that? The Simpsons traffic report guy. Hey, this is Ernie from Eye in the Sky. I think that's what I sound like. I think I sound super nasally when I talk. But yeah, the Eye in the Sky with the Hostile Takeover. So yeah, 10 o'clock, we're going to go to this. So, god damn, I got an hour and a half to kill again. I'm going to just have to slow this down. I either like blast through it too fast, or I end up rambling on about something and going over time. I've never like actually nailed the 2-hour mark, but we still got a lot to go. We still got to talk about the not-for-profit. I have a whole presentation lined up on the not-for-profit, so we'll see. Today could be the first time ever I'd actually like do well on time, and it kind of like flows into the live premiere without me just rambling and talking to Troy about ChatGPT for 45 minutes. So, how about that local sports team, Dave? All right, well, let's just go back here for a second. Let me get my next thing lined up. What does everyone else think about Toronto? Does anyone have any love for Toronto? Say something nice about Toronto, somebody. I'm going to set this up. I got the presentation. Boom, boom, boom. Best metro there is. Like metro, like Subway, or like the best metro, like grocery store? Like the one on St. Clair. That one's pretty dope. The ramen. Ramen for sure. Inshin Ramen on College. Fuck yeah. Tacos. Taco El Asador on Bloor Street, baby. Vancouver is garbage. Edmonton is too industrial. Calgary is too snobby. I don't know, man. I kind of like Vancouver. I used to live in East Van for a while when I in my early 20s. I lived on College and Broadway. It was a cool little arts community back then. It was pretty awesome. Gus Tacos? I don't know Gus Tacos. Tell me more about Gus Tacos. Have you ever been to Taco El Asador? Is Gus Tacos better than Taco El Asador? Same? Different? Halifax. Halifax is lots of fun. I like Halifax a lot. Everything outside of Vancouver is amazing. Vancouver core is soul crushing. Yeah, I can see that. There's a lot of kind of sad shit that happens in downtown Vancouver, but also lots of great stuff too. At least when I was there. But this is back, almost 20 years ago now. When I was a young man in my 20s, just kind of being a transient punk hippie, playing guitar and working odd jobs to get by. It was commercial and Broadway back then was a really cool little arts community, man. There was tons of music and lots of fun stuff happening. Good punk scene too back then in Vancouver. Cobalt on what was it, on Queen Street? I think the Cobalt is. I can't remember the name of the street, but yeah, great punk scene. And then they had the Asphalt after the Cobalt had the fire. Yeah, I had a lot of good memories of Vancouver. And Vancouver was the first province to, ease up on the weed laws that were so fucking dumb forever. I don't even smoke weed, but I realized how dumb the weed laws were in Canada. Gotta give it up to Vancouver for that. Best tacos I've ever had were in San Fran by the Van Gogh location, a taco truck that had been there since the 1986. Laura, the best tacos I've ever had were by the hotel that we were staying at when we were doing Van Gogh in LA. And there was a gas station just a couple buildings down, and it had a taco truck in it. And the tacos there were awesome. But on the weekends, they amped it up and did some El Pastor and set up a little buffet thing out front for all the fixins. It was so good. Ariel has told me about that place many times. Yeah, that place is dope as hell, man. So good. Best tacos. They just decriminalized hard drugs. Are you saying in Vancouver they just decriminalized hard drugs? That's kind of cool and a step in the right direction. I've always said that we should decriminalize that and have safe injection sites and stuff and safe places for people to do things and help for those who want it. Barrio San Fran El Matador with the Cadillac Tramps. They sound good. Lots of good Mexican food in and around California. It worked in Portugal, worked in Argentina. Yeah, exactly. Just decriminalize it, man. Fucking making mental health illegal is what they're doing. All right. I think that killed enough time talking about tacos. Let's get into the fun stuff. Indigenous Mexicali folk know good tacos. Heck yeah. I had a buddy. He was neither of those. He was. I think he was. I think he's from the Philippines. Awesome chef in Toronto. Had a little food truck down in Kensington Market for a while, and he does a lot of pop up stuff. But he made some Bannock tacos one time that were just so damn good. But yeah, a mix of Mexican and North American food. Love it. Anyways, enough about tacos. keep going on about tacos if you want, but I'm going to get into this. So from 2010 to 2020, Ticketmaster has paid over 500 million in fines and settlements. So this is just what I could easily find. There are probably more but these were the largest ones. There could be a lot more that I'm not sure of. I don't think it would really affect the number too much, but the number of infractions would be something interesting. But I think all of the larger settlements and fines would be in these lists that I found. Now there were, let me just get over it. Give me a second here. I'm going to just go through exactly what they were for. Give you a brief. So there was a $400 million settlement, which was the bulk of this. Ticketmaster agreed to pay $400 million to settle a class action lawsuit over its deceptive fees. The lawsuit alleged that Ticketmaster's fees were misleading and not properly disclosed to consumers. That was back in 2018. In 2016, a $10 million settlement. Ticketmaster settled a lawsuit with customers who claimed that the company overcharged them for shipping and handling fees. 2014, a $4.5 million settlement. Ticketmaster settled a lawsuit with customers who claimed that the company charged them higher prices for the tickets than advertised. 2011, a $16.5 million settlement. Ticketmaster settled a lawsuit with customers who claimed that the company misled them about the availability of tickets. 2010, a $22.3 million settlement. Ticketmaster settled a lawsuit with customers who claimed that the company misled them about its relationship with reseller sites like Tickets Now. 2010, a $22.3 million settlement. Ticketmaster Live Nation agreed to pay a $22.3 million settlement to the Federal Trade Commission over charges of antitrust violations related to the proposed merger between the two companies. 2011, Live Nation agreed to pay a $1.65 million fine to the U.S. Department of Justice over allegations that the company violated antitrust laws during its merger with Ticketmaster in 2010. So it looks like those two suits were maybe in injunction, or one after another. One led to another. In 2016, a $400,000 settlement. Ticketmaster agreed to pay $400,000 to settle a lawsuit brought by the Oregon Department of Justice over allegations that the company violated state law by using deceptive tactics to sell tickets online. In 2017, a 15 million euro fine. No, that's not euro. I don't know what that is, but approximately 18 million US dollars by the European Commission over allegations that the company engaged in anti-competitive practices in its dealings with venues and promoters in Europe. In 2018, Ticketmaster agreed to pay $10 million to settle a class action lawsuit over its allegations that the company cheated customers by allowing scalpers to use its resale platform to sell tickets at inflated prices. 2019, Live Nation had agreed to pay $480,000 settlement to the New York Attorney General's office over allegations that the company violated state ticketing laws by using bots to purchase ticket shows and events. In 2020, Live Nation was fined 3 million euros, approximately 3.5 million USD, by Italy's antitrust regulator over allegations that the company engaged in anti-competitive practices in the country's live music market. So those were just between 2010 and 2020. That's nothing before or after. The merger happened in 2010, so I think that's really when things got interesting. And then in 2019, there was this little thing you might have heard of called the pandemic that really messed things up. So any really data is really inaccurate. I would say even now. That could buy over 100 million tacos. I know, right? That's what I'm getting at. So this is just the fines that Live Nation, Ticketmaster have paid out that come from your money that bought tickets. So one of the reasons I'm doing this not for profit is to promote fairer, more equitable, and sustainable ways of operating in the live music industry. So a not-for-profit organization that has focused on fair, ethical, and sustainable business practices could make better use of these profits. With a $500 million, our organization could put on 500,000 free shows, paying artists double industry standards. Now, I base this on paying artists $1,000. Now, if you're an artist listening and you're like $1,000, I don't get $1,000. You're probably used to getting maybe 500, or maybe even less if you're just a solo artist playing a new market for the first few times. So this is where that money could go, to these artists that are upcoming and emerging and exploring new markets. That's a lot of shows we could put on for free. And that's not even including, charging money for tickets and getting more money to the artist. It's just one of the things we could do with $500 million. Now, with $500 million, we could also install 16,500 high-quality sound systems into struggling venues. When I opened up a 100-person venue, I spent about $30,000 on the sound system. It had a full range of sound. It had 4 top speakers, 2 subs per side, and had 6 monitors and a digital console to mix both front of house and monitors. Everyone thought the room sounded great. So for $30,000, we could install 16,500 high-quality sound systems into struggling venues. Or we could buy 100 million tacos. Now, with that kind of money, for a small indie show at a venue, 100 people or under, I think I could fund 5 million successful marketing campaigns for indie shows that don't have a marketing budget. So that just puts into perspective the kind of money that a monopoly like Live Nation Ticketmaster has, and these funds, these $500 million of funds, that to them are just the cost of doing business. There was one example I brought up last week, and this wasn't even included, but this was another $10 million settlement. That was Live Nation actually hacked into a competitor's system to steal client data, so Live Nation could steal back clients that were using this ticketing platform instead of them. So they were finding out all sorts of information, using an old employee of that company to gain access into their systems, and they were fined $10 million. And that company is no longer operational, and Ticketmaster is still going. And when Ticketmaster gets caught red-handed, hacking into a competitor's system, they get a $10 million fine. But that's just part of their $500 million fine budget over a 10-year period. So it really does less than fuck all to take Live Nation to court or anything. If anything's going to happen to Live Nation, it's got to come from consumers and artists and industry professionals just saying no, not using Ticketmaster services, and maybe struggling a little bit to find new ways to do things. So yeah, that's that. And now let's go to the next slide. So Ticketmaster has a market share of approximately 50%. Now, this number is probably not accurate. It's probably a bit more. From the hearing that we were talking about before, everyone said it was more, upwards of 80%. But, for all intents and purposes, let's just say it's 50%. And the ticketing industry is a $68 billion a year industry. Now, keep in mind that $68 billion per year is just ticketing. It's not promotions. It's not concerts. It's not anything else but the fees and money made from ticketing platforms. So, it's too small to read. So that's a $34 billion stake. What are some alternate platforms? So the biggest competitors I'd say right now would probably be SeatGeek would be the number 2, and I think they sit at around a somewhere between 10 to 15% market share. And then there would be what's the other one? The one that's Eventbrite is the another larger one, which is still very small. I think that has less than 5% or less of a market share. And then there's a bunch of secondary place ticket companies too, like StubHub and all that kind of stuff. But those are like, I would say, the main 3 ticketing companies that are doing live music and events. There are a lot of, in like say Europe, where sports are not covered by Live Nation, or sorry, Ticketmaster. There's some larger companies over there that just specialize in like say European football or cricket or something like that. And they're not covered by Live Nation, Ticketmaster, or any other North American ticketing companies. But yeah, Eventbrite and then SeatGeek would probably be the largest one with like a 14% market share. So those 2 companies have about 20% market share together, which is not even as big as Live Nation's. If they merged, they wouldn't even scratch Live Nation. So as you can see, the numbers just keep going up here. With a $34 billion budget, we could put on 34 million free shows, doubling the artist's industry standard payment. We could install 1.1 million high-quality sound systems into struggling venues, or we could fund 340 million successful marketing campaigns that don't have a marketing budget. So that's just a kind of a hyperbole, right? Like, this not-for-profit will probably never touch Ticketmaster, but knock on wood, it picks up steam and it becomes successful. But maybe we can get there. But that's a lot of, and also, the $34 billion wouldn't all go to just giving away to the arts. There's a lot of overhead and operational budgets that we have to keep in mind, and we also have to keep a $500 million fine rainy day budget for when we trample our competition and drink the blood out of artists. So this is a more realistic slide. I think if this company picks up some steam and we could get maybe say a 5% market share, these are some of the numbers that we'd be looking at. So with a 5% market share, it's a $3.4 billion share of the market, and we could put on 3.4 million free shows, or we could install 113,000 high quality sound systems into struggling venues, or we could fund 34 million successful marketing campaigns for indie shows that don't have a marketing budget. So again, all of this $3.4 billion of a 5% market share wouldn't go all to funding these things, because there's operational costs and everything. But it just puts into perspective what you can do with a 5% market share. That $3.4 billion of a, it just kind of breaks it down and gives you like a visual representation of what that means. And again, like we're talking about it like $1,000 for a show for like a emerging artist. All of the money we can, all of the profits would be going into this. So every little $1,000 we make means one more show, or it means every $30,000 in profit we make means one more venue that we can have cool shows at. Or every $100 we can fund a marketing campaign for a small indie show. You put $50 into Facebook marketing, and you put $50 into a radio ad, or you put, whatever. But that's where these are the kind of things we're going to be putting our profits into, instead of going to shareholders. So that's my presentation. If anybody has any questions, let me know. There's a lot to talk about the not-for-profit. The giving money and grants to artists, venues, and promoters is just a small part of what we're doing. There's so much more. I went over it last week in a little bit of an overview of everything. So if you go back to last week's live stream, you'll see I went through kind of everything from top to bottom and explained all the things we're going to do. Grants being one of them, and with selling tickets on a website, that gives a not-for-profit a great source of revenue. And now we can have this cyclical grant program. With the money coming in for tickets, we can just keep pumping that money back into the arts. Reform the consent decree. The Department of Justice should revisit and strengthen the 2010 consent decree that allowed Live Nation Ticketmaster to merge in the first place by imposing new conditions or restrictions on the companies to protect competition. That's what they're trying to do. That's what that's what this initial hearing was all about. It was about kind of investigating and bringing to light some of the repercussions of the merger 12, 13 years ago in 2010. And there was a lot of great stuff that came from it, and there's a lot of great talks that are stemming from it. There's and then again some losses, like if you look at it from anyone besides Live Nation Ticketmaster's point of view. Last week there was a pretty big loss when Ticketmaster won a court battle, won in court, not just like a litigation. They actually won in court, stating that their terms and conditions are readily available enough that they wouldn't be deceiving anybody when they're purchasing tickets. So that was a loss for the Justice Department, and they probably should have been more careful. I talked about this in last week's episode too, when I was talking about when the Department of Justice does come down on Live Nation Ticketmaster, they have to be very careful about the reasoning, because if they just impose new rules, or try to impose new rules, or try to find Ticketmaster Live Nation guilty of something and they lose, then it just sets a precedence for them to continue operating that way. So yeah, you're absolutely right that something needs to be done. I think Live Nation Ticketmaster, and it's a very bipartisan issue. In the hearing, there was senators from all sides of the political spectrum, and they all kind of seem to think the same thing, that it's just getting a little bit ridiculous now. Free expression is not something that power likes to pay for. Absolutely. Greed is the true enemy. Corporations having different rules than people. 100%, Brooks. 100%, Brooks. When I was talking about Live Nation, like that $10 million lawsuit, when they hacked into a competitor's systems and stole their client data and was trying to steal clients using those things. If a person did that, they would be in jail. No questions asked. But Live Nation does it. They get a $10 million slap on the wrist out of their $500 million fine budget for 10 years, and they just go on growing and getting more market share. We are pretty complicit in it, though. Yeah, I would have to agree. I've been to shows that Live Nation has promoted. I've bought Ticketmaster tickets. I've been to Live Nation venues. I've worked in Live Nation venues. There's a certain level of complicity that, as a ticket buyer or an industry professional, that happens. And I've made some sacrifices in my career where I've refused to work for certain companies. Live Nation Ticketmaster was one of them. I've never worked directly for Live Nation Ticketmaster. I think I've done one gig as a subcontractor, but it was more so through a friend who worked there, and I was helping them out. But I definitely made a decision to not work at Live Nation or for Live Nation. And there was even some smaller companies that I've not worked for, some other promoters that I just don't like the way they do business. I don't like the way they treat their promoter reps like I was doing. So yeah, we're complicit in it, but you don't have to be. You can make changes when you can. And as a consumer, you can make changes as you can too. One of the things I say to consumers is, do you want to spend $500 to go see somebody at the big arena, or would you rather spend like $10 and go see 50 shows over the course of a year at, say, the Cameron House or Dakota Tavern or all these other small little venues? Brooksy, I need beard night. Buddy, we need to hang out, man. It's been too long. It's been like a year since we hung out, man. Last year's Junos. That was the last time, buddy. It's been a year almost. It's way too damn long. More importantly, as consumers, it's very hard, if not impossible, to not be complicit in it or support corporate greed. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like if your favorite artist, like if you, like I said before in the in that article I brought up about the hearing, I can go back to it now. Give me a quick second. I'll line it up here. But you'll see some what was yeah, here we go. I'll bring this back up. Give me a second. So right here, a competing promoter, Jam Productions, testified that Live Nation attempts to lock up talent so competitors cannot produce concert tours. He also noted that 87% of Billboard's top 40 tours in 2022 were ticketed by Ticketmaster in the US, and that Ticketmaster has exclusive ticketing contracts for more than 85% of the nation's NFL, NHL, and NBA teams. So there you go. So we have 87% of the top 40 billboards. So these are the artists that are playing the big shows and selling out those arenas and stadiums. So if you go to a show in an arena or a stadium, you're complicit in it. But what are you going to do? Not go see your favorite artist? It's consumers don't have a choice. And even if they did have a choice, I've brought this up before in some other podcasts too, where even if there was a more fair market share, and say it was like kind of like maybe Coke and Pepsi, where both of them had 50% market share, and you can go into a grocery store and you can see Coke and you can see Pepsi and you can make your choice. And then there's some other pops down at the bottom, and they maybe have like 10% of the shelf space, and you can have your pick from there. If the market was more like that, it still wouldn't be much of a difference, because Coke and Pepsi are the same price, and they're pretty much available at all the same places. So what is really groundbreaking about this not-for-profit ticketing platform is that we can really be um, creative in the way we're charging for tickets and the effects that buying a ticket has on the industry as a whole, not just ourselves. Sketchy speaks facts. Cheers. Brooks, you're 100% right, man. That's my buddy Troy. Troy and I grew up together, man. He's a good friend of my little brother, and he's a great dude. He's a smart guy. I've been chatting with him a lot over the last few years, and he's always sending me interesting articles, and he's always reading about tech and business and futurism. Pay what you can ticket sales, absolutely. Sketch, Troy. Um, I've been to a lot. I've promoted shows where it's pay what you can, or even a free show and then the band passes a hat, or there's lots of cool ways, especially when we're doing all these grants and putting money into the arts. We can say, hey, band, go play this show here. Here's $1,000 for the show. Charge what you can at the door. And we can do cool creative ways like that. And also, there's partnerships and sponsorships, and these are things that Live Nation, Ticketmaster do too. Like if you look at their like income structure and their that's something I should bring up in the next live stream, is their um, investor package. It's really interesting because it shows how much money they make off of um, uh, deals and um, advertisements and brand deals and sponsorships, which is a huge source of revenue for them. So, we can also have brand deals and donors that fund these things as well. So there's there's just so many ways, like pay what you can tickets, that you can put on a show. So let me get back to my home here. Bam. So yeah, like the consumer complicity, I can't talk right now. The and then as a industry professional, I've had to make decisions to not support things that I don't feel are right or just, and to my detriment. Like that. It's I've had to take some bumps and bruises for just telling people to basically go to hell, and I'm not going to work for that. Like, I remember there was this one promoter. They paid me like the basic industry standard fee for some shows, but then they wanted me to go work these small little club shows for them, and they wanted to pay me like $100 to do them, which would be cool if I just had to go to the club for a few hours and do the show. But that's not how it works. I have to go out and get all the band hospitality before. That's an hour, maybe two. I have to advance the show. That's a couple hours. I have to get to the venue before everybody else. That's an hour. I have to stay at the venue after everybody else. There's another hour. So we're up at like 10, 12 hours for one show, getting paid $100. It's $10 an hour under minimum wage. And I broke it down for them, like exactly like that. And they were like, well, that's what we pay. And I basically kindly just told them to fuck off, and I wasn't going to work for that. I even said, hey, well, if you have me on these big shows, why don't you pay me more on those? Why don't you pay me $600 for these big shows and then pay me $100 for the small shows? And you can have me at both. And they didn't want to do that. So it's just like, fuck you. And I walked away from it, and I went on to other clients that pay me fairly and treat me well. Or sometimes I just didn't work in the industry. Like, there's times where I've gone to bartend part-time. Like when I was living in Toronto, I bartended part-time, and that's how I supplemented my income. But I could have kept going and kept being in the industry just to be in the industry, getting paid $100 to work 12 hours, but it just wasn't for me. So there's ways to kind of stick it to the people who are trying to take advantage. I know it's hard. I know, especially if it's an artist you love and you want to go see the show, you want to go see the show. I don't hold it against anybody, but you know, it's there's ways to kind of fix things. Even YouTube personalities. George, I never realized how many artists make most of their money off merch. Even YouTube personalities. I see what you're saying. Yeah, merchandise, especially merchandise, is a huge part of the industry, especially since streaming services kind of took over album sales and artists stopped making money off of album sales. Touring and merchandise was really the only ways to make money. And then now, post pandemic, with cost of everything being so high, a lot of artists are finding it hard to tour and make money. I always talk about the time this year that I was out on the East Coast trying to rent a van for 4 days, and it was going to cost me $8,000 for 4 days to rent a tour van. And there's no even large size bands, well, mid to large, let's say, that can afford that are playing like 1,000-person venues. So merchandise is a huge part of bringing in money for the artists. And but then again, also it brings in money to Live Nation because they charge 10% or 20% at their venues, and take that merch cut from the artists. So there's that as well. Fuel, exactly. Fuel's crazy. It's well, I remember in the pandemic, like when nobody was going anywhere, gas went down to like what it was like. I think it was like 80 cents or something like that a liter, and now it's close to double that. Read above. What am I reading above? I made lowest of the low get put into their contracts that whatever percentage of merch the venue wanted, we get equal of the bar. Yeah, I've heard people do that. The first I ever heard of like bar people getting to the bar, I think that came from Margaritaville. Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy Buffett gets a bar percentage because whenever he goes to play, his fans are big drinkers, and not only big drinkers, but they drink top shelf booze. So Jimmy Buffett's put into his contracts that he gets a cut of the bar, which is something I don't agree with. Artists, venues, and promoters have to kind of, I think, stay in their lanes. And there's ways a venue can make money, and there's ways an artist can make money, and there's ways a promoter can make money. And if everybody kind of works together, they, they don't have to take 20% of merch sales and then pay back 20% to the band for the bar. It's like, why am I taking 20% from you and you're taking 20% from me? It's just bullshit. But I get where you're going at it. It's like, well, if you're taking this from me, I should take it from you. It's like it's a middle finger to them, and that's what I appreciate about you, Brooks. But yeah, I'd love to talk with you on the podcast about some of your touring days with the punk bands and stuff. I love chatting with you. You should come on the podcast sometime, Brooksy. You're giving me ideas. Maybe you should start something up out east. Dave, for sure, man. Like, when you move out east and you want to do something, just let me know, man. I'll help you get something going on the East Coast anytime. Anytime. That's what this whole thing's about. It's about building a network for artists to be able to play shows. So one of the thing that we're doing was with the grant program is we're partnering with venues to build them up and make them able to house not only artists but artists that are going to put on a great show. So we'll be able to pump some money into getting them a sound system and things like that. So it's a great show. So Dave, man, I love you like a brother. If you ever want to do something out east, I'll do everything I can to help to make that happen. And if you want to help out this organization and partner with it and do something, awesome. I love it. I'd love to work with you. I love working with you now. You know, me and you went to Turkmenistan together. It worked. You know, brothers for life. Brooks, I know people in Halifax. Right on, man. Let's go there. Kip Gillis, Brian Power, shout out from John Brooks. I can't believe we survived that country. That was a crazy show we did in Turkmenistan, man. We should chat about that sometime on the podcast. That'd be fun to talk about. That was a really cool show. Man, I got 50 minutes left, and I'm through everything. I think. Let me look at my notes, but I think I'm through everything. Talk amongst yourselves. Say hi to everybody. Who's here? Brooks is still here. Blasman's still here. Troy's still here. Awesome. You guys are the best. You guys are the fucking best. So we went all over all the fines from Live Nation because they're blood-sucking parasites on the music industry. We went all through what we could do with those kind of market shares. Oh yeah. Yeah, see? This is why I keep notes. So, let me get back to my browser here. And we'll get rid of this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And we'll bring up some of my guests. And bam, boom. Immersive Van Gogh. I was very, very fortunate during the pandemic to be working in entertainment and events. Immersive Van Gogh hired me on as a production manager. They built 22 venues through the pandemic all over North America. And this week, I talked to Sean Richards, who's the director of production for Lighthouse Immersive, who oversaw all the technical aspects and a lot of the operational aspects of putting on and opening 22 venues. It was a very fun conversation. We talked about the giant logistical hurdles. We talked about operating in and after a pandemic and doing shows. We talked about, kind of cool and unique spaces and how to put in shows. Oh, you toured with Sean Richards, Brooks? That's cool, man. Yeah, Sean is a great guy, man. He was one of the best bosses I've ever had. He was just always had my back on everything. Even if he disagreed with what I was doing, he'd let me run with things. Or, if he saw me gonna trip up, he would offer some advice. But just a solid dude. I really love him a lot. He was a really great boss. 13 Engines. I'm not familiar with that. Have to link me up, man. Shoot me stuff to my YouTube. Or sorry, not my YouTube, my Facebook. He is smart. He's a smart cookie. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. So this is Ace Piva. Ace Piva is a sound engineer and technician, probably best known for his work with a not-for-profit called Over the Bridge. Not only was Ace on the podcast, I chatted with him a couple weeks ago, but Ace is monumental in my not-for-profit. He's giving me a lot of consultation on his struggles, Fat Waylon. Stop messaging me on Facebook, you assholes. Shout out Fat Waylon, Danny Bradshaw, Dave, sorry you're out of the band, but we had to kick Dave out of the band because he went to the gym and got skinny. Brooks, he's cool. Ace, he is, man. Everyone from Hamilton's cool. So yeah, we had a conversation. He talks about mental health, addictions, how Over the Bridge really brought to the mainstream conversations of the industry, the struggles with mental health and addictions within it, and really put language to a lot of things that people just had no idea they were feeling. Like one of the things that he talks about is the, pardon me, the post gig dopamine drop offs, and they were funding research into that, and they were studying artists and their dopamine levels pre-show and post-show. Really, really interesting stuff. I had a great conversation with Ace. I love him like a brother. We were partners in Canadian Indie Week on the we were the whole we were the production team. We had a couple volunteers, but it was Ace and I, and yeah, that I love Ace. Great conversation. Now let's go to here. So Jacob Taves. Jacob is a electronic musician. He also works in the health sector. Very smart guy, funny guy. He has the best stories. If you watched my episode with Eamon McGrath told this awesome story about a guy that he's toured with and worked with. And the story went to that he was somewhere in Europe, and he got paid in like a barrel of gasoline instead of cash. So he just like, for the whole tour, he just had this like barrel of gasoline sitting in the back, and they would like pull over to the side of the road, and then like took two guys to like pour it into the thing, and they just towed it around this thing like totally Mad Max style. And so he tells that story. In Eamon, when he told it, he kind of mixed two stories up. So Jacob will chat about what really happened and tell both of the stories that Eamon kind of mashed up together. But he tells that and a lot of other great stories. He's been all around the world doing music. He's collaborated with Eamon as well. I think that's one of the newer pieces of work they've done. Really cool. Eamon doesn't play guitar in it, which is interesting. It's cool. Go check it out. I'll put the link in the description here if you want to go check out his work, because it's awesome. So that's Jacob Taves. He'll be on the podcast in the next couple weeks. And then we got, whoops. Bam. Lemon Entertainment. Jessica Lemon. I'm chatting with her this coming week, actually, on Wednesday. If anybody has any questions for Jessica, Jessica runs Lemon Stage as well as Lemon Entertainment. She kind of has two companies that she operates. Lemon Stage started out, she was booking bands for Vans Warped Tour, and that's where she does a lot of her like promotional work and things like that. And then Lemon Entertainment is, to my understanding, kind of more of a marketing company. They do entertainment consulting and brand development and all sorts of different like marketing strategies and things like that. And they kind of help artists fill those gaps. Jessica and I have known each other a long time, but we never met until maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But when we met, we felt like we knew each other just because, we'd been following each other on social media for so long and stuff, and following each other's work and just knowing what other people are up to in the industry. But it was kind of funny when we met because it was like we'd basically already met. I'll say hi for you, Brooksy, for sure. So yeah, super excited to talk with Jessica. She does lots of cool work too, like just the artists she works with, the she just really cares. She's not out there to, like a lot of promoters, to make a buck. She's in it because her heart and soul's in it, and it really comes through in seeing the artists she works with, seeing how people in the industry talk about her. So super stoked to have a conversation with her. And like I've always wanted to work with her too, and we've just never had the opportunity, just because we're both kind of production people, and typically there's only like one production manager on a site. So I would love to work with her in the future. Who else do we got here? We've done Jessica, we've done Ace, we've done Sean, we've done Jacob. All right, and then we go here then. Last but not least, Will Dunlop, aka DJ Wolverine from 89.1 Max FM. He is a Saturday night DJ. He plays what he wants, when he wants, mostly alternative, and kind of, he's all over the map, man. I've heard him play some Nine Inch Nails, some older, stuff like Depeche Mode, and then he'll play some new stuff like the Mono Whales. He's just all over the map. He's a great dude. Had a great conversation with him. He's really a boy. We got to go for a beer after the podcast, so that was fun because most of these are all remote and people live far away, so it was cool to do something with a local boy. And this episode is going to be airing in 40 minutes on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Hostile Jakeover. And I'll put the link in the description when we get there. So that's all the guests, and I think that's everything. So, okay, I'm out. Great show. Love to all. Thanks for coming, Brooks. Thanks for hanging out, man. Appreciate it. Here, do me a favor. Before you go, Brooks, let me go back home here for a second. Bam. Let me get to my YouTube and put the link in. And we go to my channel. Bam. Oh no, not that one. We want this one. Oh, we already have somebody waiting in there. Wowzers. Super fan. All right, I am going to pop this up in here. This is a link to episode 5. It's a live premiere. So if you click on this link, you can go watch the live premiere at 10 o'clock. I'll also be on there, not like this. I won't be on the video screen, but I will be in the chat, and I will be live chatting. I'm pretty sure Wolverine will be coming as well. And we will be just answering any questions. I'm just going to try to pin this to the top here. Yeah, so the link, the pinned message at the top of the chat, click on that. Even if you're going to sleep, just click on it, mute it. It helps me out big time. So good night, Brooks. I love you lots, man. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for telling us all your stories about all of your roadie punk rock days. So yeah, maybe since Sketch is here, Troy, we can talk about the work I did this week. So Troy, who is Sketch Media on here, has been giving me awesome advice on ChatGPT. Here we go. Yeah, he's typing ChatGPT right now. It's blowing my mind. It's absolutely blowing my mind. So I can't bring up the chat, but I'm going to open up ChatGPT right now, and we'll just have some fun with it. So I talked to industry professionals all week. I talked to not-for-profit professionals all week. I've been really trying to get my information package together, and to get a mission statement together, and everyone I talk to gives me a few editing notes and things that they'd see changed, and I would change that, and I would rack my brain on how to word it. And then last night, I just took what I had, I pasted it into Chat GPT, and all I said was, "Can you make this better to present to artists, venues, and promoters?" And bam, I had this perfect information package that I can now give out. And I've been working on this for so long. I've talked to so many industry professionals that are so smart and know so much about what they do. And ChatGPT just blew us all out of the water in a matter of seconds. It was absolutely insane. Like, I have 22 years experience in the industry. I've always been into writing, and I can kind of put things down on paper that sound good and people can read and understand. But ChatGPT just absolutely makes me feel like a moron, because they not only does it just sound better from an English language standpoint, it sounds better from an industry standpoint, which is the scary thing about how damn good it is. So I'm going to just log into this here, and then we'll just have some fun. Type in the chat anything you want to ask AI, and we'll just have fun with it. I got like 20 minutes to kill, so this is over. We're just having fun now. So you can see here, so this is my arts grant program chat here. I can't open that up because it has some sensitive information in there. Tacos. All right, what do you want to know about tacos? So it keeps track of the conversation. Oh, sorry, I got to transition over here. Bam, here we go. So I just like wrote Zimbabwe current events because I wanted to see with like geo blocking. So geo blocking is when Google, say, when you type in events or something, they kind of block certain geographical regions. So I wanted to see if ChatGPT was doing that. So that's why you see the Zimbabwe current events there. And then here I have a conversation about my arts and grant program. I can't open that up because it has a lot of sensitive data in it, and a lot of things that I'm just not ready to share with the public yet. And then I was just asking about like venues that were closing down, trying to do a bit of research and stuff here. But let's just start a new chat here. Okay, so Sketch wants me to type what the biggest problem we face in the music industry, and then he wants me to get it to ask him to reply as an industry professional. So let's say, what are the 3 biggest problems we face in the music industry? Reply as a music industry professional. Put a question mark there because grammar. Okay, so as a music industry professional, I believe the 3 biggest problems we face in the music industry are the streaming model. While streaming has made music more accessible than ever before, it has also created a number of challenges for artists and the industry as a whole. The revenue generated from streaming is often inadequate, with many artists struggling to earn a living from their music. Additionally, the algorithms used by streaming services often prioritize popular tracks over less well-known ones, which can make it difficult for new artists to gain exposure. That's pretty damn true. Um, that's like damn good. That's like the only thing that I would add to that when they're talking about streaming services prioritizing popular tracks over less well-known ones. Well, that is true, depending on how you use the search algorithm, and how you use Spotify. So it'll prioritize popular tracks by playlists and things like that. But if you make your own playlists, the algorithm is so good at giving you bands that are similar in sound and genre. And when you're making your own playlist, it doesn't really um, offer you up the more like bought and paid for promotions. So that's the other thing it didn't mention here, is that not only does it to do like the playlists promote popular music, but also that these playlists you have to like pay to get on them. And like kind of how like a music promoter or a radio promoter would work. Not a radio promoter. Yeah, a radio promoter would work when they were taking artists and getting them to play on radio stations. It's the same kind of thing where like there's these people who make playlists, and they, you know, people could give them money to put their artists on the playlists. And then you wanted me to type, how can we solve these problems? Okay, I'll go through this answer, then we'll type in, how can we solve these problems? Copyright infringement. With the ease of access to digital music, piracy and copyright infringement remain a major issue for the industry. Unauthorized distribution of music can lead to significant revenue loss for artists and labels, making it difficult to invest in new artists and develop their careers. Okay. That is damn accurate. It's interesting. So one thing I would say about the copyright infringement is, while it's easier to access digital music than ever before, it's also easier than ever to search for your music and copyright claims. You know, with just radio and CDs, you know, you couldn't use these algorithms to find people using your material before. So while copyright infringement is definitely an issue, it's also like the same technology that made copyright infringement easier to access makes it easier to combat as well. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. And then lack of diversity and representation. The music industry has historically been dominated by a narrow range of voices and perspectives, with many genres and communities still underrepresented or excluded. This lack of diversity not only limits artistic expression, but also limits the industry's ability to connect with new audiences and grow its fan base. Efforts are being made to address this issue, but it's still a long way to go to create a more inclusive and representative music industry. 100%. ChatGPT nailed this one. There's definitely a lack of diversity and representation. I talked about this with Roz, Alyssa Moon, on my last episode. We were talking about, one, how if you look at the music industry, say you look at the top 40 Billboard charts, right? It looks like equal representation. You have people of color and women and men of color at the top. You know, there's equal representation. There's people who are, you know, not traditionally, I guess, like attractive, like, and have like, you know, bigger bodies. There's, you know, LGBTQIA plus, all at the top. They're all there. Like Sam Smith, you know, is LGBTQ, and then there's like Lizzo, who's like a larger woman of color. There's all sorts of representation, but that's just like the surface in the top 40, right? If you look further into the industry, further into industry jobs, you know, things like producers, right? So while men and women kind of share a 50-50 ish, like I'm not sure the exact numbers on it, but if you look at the top of the charts, like men and women are pretty much 50-50 for top of the charts. And if you look at things like producers, it goes down to like 5% of producers are women. So, that is a giant lack of diversity. So yeah, the ChatGPT just fucking nailed this one, man. Now, before I ask it, how can we solve these problems? I want to say what I would do because I'm an industry professional, and then we'll see what ChatGPT says. I think that would be interesting. So the streaming model. Um, so for the streaming model, I would say a few things have to happen. One, it has to be more expensive. Two, the free or cheaper versions, like say for instance Spotify, there's a free subscription and then there's a $10 subscription. There should also be like a third tier subscription which has some like added benefits that's more expensive, so they can like double the revenue off of like the fan base who wants those little like extras, like maybe like a pre-release NFT or something or whatever is going to incentivize people to pay more than like what is Spotify's like what $10 or $11 a month. Maybe like you could charge people $20 a month for like music lovers. I would pay fucking $20 a month for it. So it's got to be, they have to charge more so they can pay the artists more. And then on the free ones, there just has to be more advertising. There has to be, if you watch YouTube, there's basically a commercial at the beginning of every single song. Same with music, man. Like if you're not paying for it, somebody has to pay for it. So if we can get marketing money in it, then that money can go to the artists, sure. And then the other thing is just corporate greed. That has to go. There's no reason why they can't pay more to the artists. There's absolutely no reason. Copyright infringement. I think so. Again, like I said, the same technology that made access to copyright material more accessible is the same technology that can be used to combat it. Like, there's all sorts of algorithms that just like scour the internet for copyrighted materials now. Whereas before, it would literally have to be a person viewing something in real time. So I think that's where it would go with copyright infringement. Also, with copyright infringement, Web3 and the blockchain, that's going to be huge in protecting copyrighted materials. So, lack of diversity and representation. Again, this is just I can't tackle this issue. I don't know. Obviously, we have to make strides like we have been doing in hiring underrepresented people in all levels of the music industry, from artists all the way to like producers and CEOs and that kind of thing. And we just have to, always have that on our minds when we're doing hiring. If you're hiring somebody, and there's two people for the position, and one is like underrepresented or they struggle more, hire that person if they have the same like qualifications, or like this is what you're looking for is like easily trainable. Just hire the person that could use the job. Whether they have like some kind of like mental health thing, um, or if like they're whatever underrepresented people there are, we need to get them into jobs, and we need to prioritize them into getting jobs. So let's see what Chat GPT has to say about it. How can we? Let's do this. Can you give us 5 examples for each of these problems? 5 examples of solutions for each of these problems. Let's do that. This fucking program's so good. All right. Sure. Here are 5 potential solutions for each of the problems facing in the music industry. Streaming model. increase royalty rates paid to artists by streaming service, and or explore alternative revenue sharing models that are more favorable to artists. Alternative revenue sharing models. That's interesting. I talk about revenue sharing in my not-for-profit. Um, in my information package, I compare music sharing in the, revenue sharing um, to the NFL. The NFL does revenue sharing really well. All sports, all of the teams pool money. Larger franchises pool more, and that puts money into the smaller franchises. So that means more games, more competition, and then for the music industry, that would mean more shows, more money for the artists, things like that. Really interesting. Provide greater transparency around the data and algorithms used by streaming services so that artists have a better understanding of how their music is being promoted and discovered. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Develop more diverse and inclusive playlists and content curation that highlight emerging and underrepresented artists. Yes. Yeah. Encourage fans to support artists through direct to fan platforms like Patreon. I mean, like, I don't agree with that. Like, the yes, you should support your artists, but you know, when you're talking about how can music streaming services um, pay more to artists, getting them to beg for money on Patreon isn't like you know, a thing. It's like, I know your fans are giving us money to listen to you, so why don't you go beg for money on another website? Like, that doesn't seem like a solution to me, but whatever. Um, educate fans about the impact of streaming on artists and encourage them to support their favorite artists through merchandise sales, ticket purchases, and other means. Again, like, it's like, I know we're getting your fans to give us money, but you make money off of other things, so we're gonna make money off this. Like, that's not a good. Bad chat GPT, bad chat GPT. These are bad. I'm gonna say that to them. I'm gonna copy this. Both both of these answers are not good. As a music industry professional, I believe the solutions to streaming sites is for streaming sites to pay money to artists, not for artists to find other ways to make money. The streaming site companies are taking money from fans to listen to the artist's music, and that money should go to the artists in a more fair manner. Let's see this response to that. Oh, it understands and respects my perspective. So polite. I agree with your statement that streaming sites should pay artists fairly for their work. To be examples, I agree with your statement. I provided were intended to be examples of potential approaches to addressing the issues facing the industry, but I understand that there are many perspectives and other potential solutions. Ultimately, the other music industry will need to work together to find a more equitable and sustainable. Am I GPT? Like, this is like verbatim what I've been saying for the past like ever since I started this damn thing. The music industry needs to work together. In my first draft of my mission statement and info package, I said, like, we need to form a symbiotic relationship between artists, promoters, and venues so we can all grow together. It's just, anyways. So let's get back up to the streaming model. Copyright infringement. Increase. I'm gonna blow through this because we got 15 minutes until probably regurgitating my data back at me. You know what? Maybe I could be in like my own brain loop here. That's scary. Let me know if you're frightened. It did eat up time nicely. So let's just blow through these here. Copyright infringement. This is what ChatGPT thinks we can do about copyright infringement. Increase awareness and education around copyright laws and negative impact of piracy on artists in the industry. Yeah, we've all seen those commercials about you wouldn't steal a refrigerator, but you are stealing music. Work with ISPs and law enforcement agencies to shut down pirate sites and bring. No, because these things just are like they go into different areas that the law doesn't apply, and they've been doing this for years, and then they've had like little to no effort or little to no success for the amount of money and resources it takes to kind of combat this kind of thing. Encourage streaming services to take more proactive role in identifying and removing pirated content from their platforms. For sure. Develop and promote legal and affordable accessible alternatives to pirated content such as subscription-based music services, digital downloads, and physical merchandise. Yes. Yeah. Foster a culture of respect and intellectual property rights among fans and the general public. Really interesting. It didn't go into anything on Web3 or the blockchain on this. I really feel like Web3 and the blockchain will really change the game when it comes to copyright infringement, and there's already ways to be doing it. And I just really feel like that's a huge answer that it's missing right here, because it has given me answers about blockchain and Web3 in my other queries. Lack of diversity and representation. Invest in programs and initiatives that provide support and opportunities for emerging artists from underrepresented communities. 100. Increase diversity within music industry leadership, including labels, publishers, talent agencies, to better reflect the communities they serve. 100. Encourage greater collaboration and cross-genre partnerships to showcase a wider range of artists and styles. 100. Develop, promote dedicated platforms and events that highlight underrepresented voices and perspectives such as women, people of color, LGBTQIA+ individuals, and those with disabilities. 100. Foster a culture of inclusion and respect within the music industry by promoting diversity and celebrating the unique perspectives and talents of all artists. 100. Well, I really think that ChatGPT is stronger at talking about diversity and representation than it is about the music industry. Kind of blasé for the copyright bit. Yeah, I think so too. And I know I just kind of like ran through it really quickly, but there's definitely stuff we can open up in there. Maybe we'll make this a portion of the show, talking to ChatGPT about what could be done, because this is kind of interesting. Anyways, I'm going to go. I'm going to take a little 10-minute break. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate everyone and chatting in the comments. Troy, Dave, John, Laura, other Dave Blasman, Dave Leslie. Appreciate you all. Aiden Fountain, appreciate you. Thank you so much, everybody. Love you all. I will chat with you if you come on in 10 minutes. If you click the link at the pin to the top of the chat, it'll bring you over to the live premiere of DJ Wolverine from Max FM 89.1 Alternative North. And I'll be chatting in the comments live with you. Good night, Aiden. Love you lots. Jake Nation. Thank you, Troy, man. Thank you, man. You're such a great supporter of all this crazy shit I'm doing, and I really appreciate it. So I'll chat with everybody in a bit. You have a great night too, Aiden. Love you lots.